friends, and welcome to another video lesson from DBOS Talks. If you haven't subscribed yet, please click subscribe and click the bell so that you're going to be notified of new uploads. This video is in the playlist called SQL Concepts Clarified, and here we'll be learning the difference between NVL and NVL2 in SQL. Okay, so NVL is a function which is used to replace a null value with a specific value, whereas the NVL2 lets you return different values depending on whether a column or expression, a variable is null or not. Okay, so you will see the difference between these two via some examples. Okay, so let's first have a look at a table called employees, which I've been using for quite a number of videos. All right, so in this video, in this table, we could see that in row 4, which I'm highlighting, you could see that some of the values of the respective columns are null, like depth ID, this one, depth ID, the civil status, gender. So some of its columns are null or blank. Okay, so and we'll be dealing with this. We'll be using this as an example for you to see how the NVL and the NVL2 works. Now remember that when you do an NVL, when you use an NVL or NVL2 in a select statement, you are not really, you're just querying, you're not actually doing a DML, you're not doing a data manipulation or like editing or updating the data at all. You're just, if it's in a select statement, you are simply altering how it is being, or customizing how it is being displayed as a result set, okay? So let's try NVL function on the columns civil status and gender, okay, which like I pointed out to you, the row 4 there has a couple of null values. Okay, so the NVL works like this, okay? If you will break down the NVL, let me isolate it. So NVL, of course, it's a function. It comes with a pair of parentheses there. Okay, you can ignore this, it's just an alias, but focus on this part. NVL, typically you have a column name here. It could also be a variable, it could also be a parameter name, could be a bind variable, but to simplify it, NVL, and then you have here a column name, comma, and then the other parameter to that is the value you want to give it to during display, if ever this column happens to be null. Okay, if this column, this is the first parameter of the function, is are having a null value, then this second parameter will be returned. Okay, and whereas I'll be using the same thing here. NVL also, so I'm using the NVL on 2 columns, civil status as well as gender. So same thing here. I'm saying that in the gender column, if its value is, if it has a value, then no problem, it will return it as is. But if this column contains a null value, then what it will display instead is an uppercase M, in this case, an uppercase S. Okay, so let me just put them together and let's see them at work. So I'm putting them side by side with the corresponding original value. So in this case, I'm putting it side by side, civil status, as well as the one wherein NVL is being used. And then here, gender, and side by side or alongside the one wherein we're using the NVL function. Okay, and they're from the table employees. So select the surname just for you to have a point of reference. And then the civil status, the before and after, and then the gender before and after. When I say before and after, I mean before and after the use of the NVL function. So if I execute this now, okay, so you can see, focus on these two columns here, civil status and new civil status. So here, this is the original set of values for civil status, but for row number 4, it happens to be null. So because of the NVL there, which is this, it replaces the null with an S. That's why we have an S here. Okay, so that's the NVL. So NVL again, NVL, the column name here, then comma, and then the value that you want to assign to it in case it's null. So in this case, it happens here. If it's null, civil status null, it will replace that with S, uppercase S. Same thing with gender. We have here NVL gender M, meaning if the value of gender column is null, then assign M or show M. So same thing in the same row 4. If we look under gender column, you see this is null. And because of the NVL, the effect is that it is being given a value of uppercase M because of this code over here. Okay, so that's NVL. It is a way to assign a value for display. It doesn't really, if you use it in a select statement, you're not really updating the data in the database, in the table, but you are just manipulating how it is getting displayed. Okay, so that's NVL. Second is NVL2. So now let's look at NVL2. If we look at the values, okay, I'll just get the code, the SQL command. So just like in the previous example, I am putting side by side the before and the after, meaning civil status, and then after the use of the NVL2 function over here. This is just an alias over here. And then we have a gender, the raw value, the value from the table, as well as the after, which is after applying the NVL2 function to it. Okay, so again, NVL2 function, it has, unlike the NVL, it has 3 parameters to it. So just to simplify, the first parameter should be typically the column name. It can be a variable name, it can be a parameter name. But just simplify it. The first parameter in NVL2 is also usually the column name of a table, okay? And then the second parameter is what it will display in case it is not null. And then the third is what it will display if it is null, okay? So column name, what it's gonna display if it's not null. It, by what I mean is the first parameter, okay? The third is what it's gonna display if it's null. Okay, so again, you focus on row number 4 because this is where we have the null values. If I execute this now, so you can see that it doesn't look any different from the previous one. It's doing exactly the same thing as the NVL, and it could confuse you, but you hold on a minute because I'll be giving you a better example after this. Okay, so but at any rate, it is working correctly. Okay, so NVL2 works like this: column name. Okay, let's work on the civil status. Column name, the value displayed if it is not null, the value displayed if it is null. Okay, so again, second parameter is the value displayed if it is not null. What I'm saying here is instead of a hard-coded value, what I'm telling SQL is that simply display whatever is the value of that column. In this case, civil status. That is why when you come over here to row number 4, this is null, isn't it? So the value displayed if not null is the value itself, but it happens to be null. So this one will work, the other one, the third parameter, which is the value displayed if it is null. In this case, uppercase S. So it's correct. Same thing for the gender, NVL2 gender. You look at this and then you focus here on these two over here, the before and the after. Again, the value of gender here in row number 4 is also null. Okay, so going back to the NVL2 column name, the value to be displayed in case it is not null. In this case, it happens to be null, so this won't apply. Here, this will work. The value to be displayed in case it is null. So that's why it is displaying M. Okay, so that's how the NVL and the NVL2 differ. Again, NVL contains 2 parameters. NVL2 contains 3 parameters. For both of them, the first parameter is the column name. It may be a variable name, it could be a parameter name, but I don't want to complicate things and confuse you. Just to simplify it, focus on, typically it's usually the first parameter is the column name. Okay, so again, like I told you, the output here looks very much the same as the one wherein we use the NVL function. So to make it look a bit different and to show to you it's really working correctly, I will replace this with a different set of values to be displayed in case of having a value. So for NVL to remember, the second parameter is the value being displayed if the column is not null. So I'm saying now I'm giving it a hard-coded value instead of the civil status in the earlier example, if you remember. But this time, the second parameter, I'm assigning a hard-coded value, a string, with the words with value in uppercase. So meaning it will evaluate the first column, which is the first parameter, which is the column. If it has a value, it will show this with value. Otherwise, if it is null, it will show S. That's for civil status. For gender, it will evaluate the column gender. If it is not null, if it's not blank, it will show these words with value. And if it is null, then it will show M. Okay, let's do this now. Again, if you focus on row number 4, here's the before, here's the after. If you go to civil status, it is null indeed, yes. And because of the application of the NVL2, and because it's null, then the third parameter is working, which is displaying this S. Okay, if it happens to be not null, it has a value, then it will display with value. And you can see that effect in the other rows, 1, 2, 3, and 5. You can see because the value of civil status is not null, it is showing the words with value here, 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 as well as here. Similarly, in the gender column, I'm doing the same thing. If the gender column, which is this, has a value, then it should display with value, like here, 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 and also here. That's because of NVL2. But if that gender column doesn't have a value, if it's blank, if it's null, then it should display this third parameter, which is M, and it's working correctly, okay? Like I said, it's an equivalent to the one you've seen previously. It's just that I changed the values a little bit just to make it very obvious visually that indeed the NVL2 is working. And not only that, it is working in a different way slightly compared to the NVL. Okay, thank you for watching and listening. If you haven't subscribed, please click subscribe and click the bell. And I'll be seeing you in the next video.